And from what I've been reading in the news, that they may just throw the case out, because what this means is they're planning on giving the poor man 70 years in prison. I mean, granted, he did the wrong thing by going into hacking into a government database, but what he disclosed is far more devastating, in that it means that NASA, collecting billions of dollars from taxpayers, has been lying to the public all this time, that pretending that, like CSETI, we're trying to find, extraterrestrial life. Maybe someday we'll find it out there, and that they, keep, when I traveled across the United States, going to these different presentations that we did across the United States, showing that this is real to people, we try to encourage people to write their senators, Congress, and the president. And nobody has time to write a letter, so I created an online fax. And I was curious to see how the president and the vice president and all the representatives would respond to this, And so what I did was, I asked everybody who was sending a fax to Washington to send me a copy of the reply. And what I did was, I got about 80 of them, and posted them all up on the disclosureproject.org site. You can go there and see them. And I started to notice a pattern. And the pattern was pretty much one of two things. Either, thank you very much, we'll keep your views in mind if extraterrestrial hearings are brought in Congress, just kind of a canned letter, Or the other one was official letters of denial from NASA, So it appeared to me that they've all been indoctrinated and briefed, basically, on how, if the public comes up with these embarrassing questions, how to, brush them off with, official letters of denial from NASA. And in one, after the National Press Club, I toured with Dr. Cal Rosen, who, worked with the secret government insider Dr. Werner von Braun, and Captain Salas, who's in charge of the missiles, who you heard. We went all over Capitol Hill, met with dozens of senators and Congress people. And on one, I sat there and I said, look, we just went on all the major media, and if we're perpetuating a hoax, we should all be thrown in jail and punished, And I said, all we're asking is to look into this, to see the validity of it. And all we got, they were polite and cordial, but it's basically, friendly, okay, thank you very much, and nobody wants to touch it because it's too much of a hot potato.
Yeah, Dan, let me ask you a question. In light of the fact that this has just been so thoroughly and absolutely stonewalled by our government, and the media is really complicit in this, observing this wall of silence on the topic, does that, because there are some that study this phenomena that basically subscribe to the whole storyline in the X-Files, and that's where the storyline was adapted from, that believe that, that they interpret the data and the government's reaction or non-reaction, however you want to classify it, is the belief that somehow, in some way, in some context, that our government is somehow complicit and acting in collusion with alien civilizations.
Oh, really, really, really good point on a couple of facts. That one, I just want to say, our legal government, the government that we know, is pretty much out of the loop. Our military that we know and our intelligence community, we're talking compartmentalized. Think of very compartmentalized special operatives that are maintaining these, as Christie brought forward earlier, that with a very highly compartmented operation, one person doesn't know what the other person is doing, and that's what they call unacknowledged special access projects, or USAPs, where it doesn't matter if it's a president is asked to inquire on this thing, they're lied to. It doesn't exist. It's unacknowledged. And so basically the secret government, I guess you could give it a title to, that has basically infiltrated in our national security system has back in 1954 was basically the turning point where, you know, and you can tell by Eisenhower's address, you know, he had a lot of concern about it. They lost control of the whole issue. So it was no longer congressional oversight, no longer in our legal government control. It was now gone into deep black projects that were basically securing the interests of a very few people and not for all of humanity.
So, I mean, the subcommittee that oversees NASA, you're telling me that for the most part, the members thereof are completely in the dark and they're just basically looking the other way and obeying the people who raise funds for their campaigns and something of that sort.
What I'm saying is that most people, like Donna Hare was mentioning about the airbrushing before it goes to the public, most people in NASA and our government and our military have no idea. They're just doing their job.
But Congress does have oversight, and obviously some of this information has reached the ears and the desks of those who are supposed to be in an oversight role, and yet they're basically derelict in their duty to provide this oversight. Why do you believe that is?
Because, for example, Dr. Greer met with one of the head Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the head of, I forget his name. It's on the website, but he was in charge of, intelligence. And anyway, in his position, he, if anybody, would have access to this type of thing. And Dr. Greer provided the names of the projects and had him look into it. And he was told flat off, "Sir, you don't have a need to know." You know, and he was furious.
You're talking about somebody who's essentially basically a glorified spook, and of course they're going to adopt that position. But these guys from the Joint Chiefs,
yes.
But yeah, these guys from the Joint Chiefs, they have to go behind closed door with their subcommittees in Congress and get money appropriated to fund all of this garbage that they're involved in, you know. And at some point, you know, those providing oversight are derelict in their duty to do so, and they're really complicit in this. I was just wondering, you know, if you've directed any of your efforts towards those individuals, and what kind of stonewall response have you, if any, received from them?
Well, Dr. Greer has, you know, I'm just one of the 20 witnesses that went to Washington. Dr. Greer has been more involved in direct experience with this, and he's been several situations where we even had had somebody, you know, floating down the Potomac, you know, that ended up, you know, dead after it was trying to assist with the project. But that's another long story. Yeah. Let's just say there's a lot of good people in our government intelligence community, and it's within these projects that are able to maintain the secrecy and the compartmentalization that has allowed them to use our own secrecy system. You know, it's good to have secrecy about some things, you know, especially in the interest of our national security. And you know, it's important to have a good military and a good government. But when you have an element coming in that has its own agenda, that has basically usurped control of our own national security system and using it against, using our own secrecy system against us, where they actually maintain control of media to their interests. They maintain control.
Now, is this solely being done to advance commercial interests, or do you think it really goes deeper than that? I'm
sure, you know, who knows what's in the mind of the secret government, right? But apparently there's a lot of interest to maintain geopolitical control on these energy devices, which seem to be one of the key issue, because yes, they discovered a lot of different technologies which they disseminated to the public, through different corporations. But the stuff that they, brought on the table that could run your house, with a little box